Okay, so now that we've successfully set up our login and registration modules, the next thing we need to do is to kind of start organizing our project. Now the next thing we need to do is to start organizing our project and start preparing to develop the most important features that we're going to be having in our app. Now, one of the most important things that we need to do is to create a system that will enable us to retrieve this information that we have saved locally. Now what we need to do is to go ahead and create a new static class that will enable us to retrieve any of these values from anywhere within our application. So to be able to do this, I'm going to go to my Solution Explorer and I'm going to create a new folder. So this folder, I'm going to call it Helpers. Alright. Okay, now inside of the new folder that we just created, I'm going to go ahead and make a new file or a new class. So I'm going to call this class AppData Helper. Okay, so because I want the content of this class to be accessible globally, I'm going to go ahead and make it a static class. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this constructor. Now the next thing I need to do is to write a method that is going to retrieve the full name for us from anywhere within our application. Now the next thing I need to do will be to go ahead and create a public method with a return type of string. So I'm going to have public string. So I'm going to call this method getFullName. Alright, so now to get our full name, the first thing we need to do is to declare or get an instance of our user defaults. So I'm going to go ahead and say var user defaults. This is going to be equal to ns user defaults. So we'll need to resolve this. So I'm going to have ns user defaults dot standard user defaults. And the next thing we need to do is to fetch the full name string. So to do that, I need to first of all make a variable that is going to take the value. Now I'm going to go ahead and say user default dot string for key. So remember that when we are saving this information to our user default, we use a key. So this key is what we are going to be using to retrieve the variable or the value back anytime that we want. So for full name, the key that we use is simply full name. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and return full name. Alright, so like we earlier mentioned, we want this method to be accessible globally from anywhere within our application. So instead of having this as just a normal method, I'm going to go ahead and add static to it. So by adding static, it means that we can access it from anywhere within our application. So I need to go ahead and do the same thing for our email address and our phone number, because most times in the application we'll be needing these values. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new method. So I'm going to call this method getEmail. So we're going to go ahead and do just the same thing that we did for the full name. So I'm going to have user defaults. And this should be equal to ns user defaults dot standard user defaults. Alright. Now the next thing we need to do is to declare a new variable, and the name is going to be email. So we're going to use it to retrieve the value of our email address. So I'm going to have user defaults dot string for key, and the key is email. Alright, and finally we need to go ahead and return email. So later on in the app, we're going to be making use of these methods extensively. So it just makes a lot of sense that we create them right away. So we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing for user ID and phone number. Okay, so we successfully created the methods that is going to retrieve our user ID and our phone number. So this is all we need to do to set up our AppData helper. So like I already explained, we are going to be making use of this extensively after now. Now the next thing we also need to do is to start organizing our project. So what I need to do will be to go ahead and make a new folder. So this folder, I'm going to call it view controllers. So all of our view controllers is going to be saved or bundled inside of this folder. This is to ensure that our files are properly organized, because you and I really have a knack for code organization. So I'm going to go ahead and name this view controller. Alright, so I'm going to simply click on each of the view controllers and I'm going to drag it inside of this folder, just like this, and this, and this. Okay, so guys, this will be all for now. See you in the next class.